And welcome back to the Bettor Sports Show, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Ryan. I'm here with Randy. Randy, how you doing this evening?
Ryan, what's going on? It's been a couple weeks, buddy.
I know it's been a long time, a couple weeks. That's like a long fucking time in like modern years. Yeah, think of all the things that could have happened in those few weeks, full of boxing robberies, UFC shenanigans, and all other sorts of wild news in the sports world.
Again, and the timeline's moving fast. We got NFL season knocking right on the door. All-star breaks coming up for MLB. Um, yeah, things are moving at a fast pace here. What do you got today?
So today, the first thing I'm looking at is the UFC on Saturday. I have a few picks that I like a lot. I'm just gonna throw this out there. Fatima Klein. She's coming in short notice debut against Javdavicius, and she opened as even, and the line is already shifted. She is already starting to be the favorite. I expect that to climb as we get closer. I'm going to buy into the hype here. A young prospect coming right out of camp, which means she's probably comfortable with this matchup against Javdavicius, right, to take it on such short notice. I'm just going to buy the hype. I love her here. I have a unit on her. Fun fact, I like Jasmine in the original fight against Vivi, but I got to go with the younger up and coming striker here. On top of that, Josh Fremd versus Andre Petrosky. I've noticed that the line there has flipped. Fremd started off as the underdog. He is now the favorite across the board against Petrosky. Petrosky coming off that rough knockout at the hands of Jacob Malkoun, right? You know, you got to watch the Australians. You know, they grow up boxing the kangaroos and shit, so you know they got hands. I
For
like
sure.
Fremd as well. I think he can win both a decision and potentially get a submission here if the fight stays standing. This kind of sounds weird, but I look for like a standing guillotine or some other type of standing submission. I think both guys are going to be grappling against the fence, fighting for position, going for the takedown, and I think that could leave an opening for a finish. And then finally, I know people are going to giggle, but I really do think Tracy Cortez is quite live in this fight. I think she's younger. I think the price is absolutely right, plus 185 and climbing some places. I think that's most definitely worth it. I don't like Rose's game since she's left Trevor Whitman, since she's moved around the weight classes. She feels a little inconsistent in how she's fighting, how she's presenting herself. She did win her last fight. I watched the whole thing, but I don't know. Perhaps it's just anecdotal bias. He doesn't feel like the same Thug Rose, you know? Doesn't have the same pop on the punches and the kicks and the strikes. I like the up and comer here. Maybe she wins. She calls out Alexa Grasso for a fight in the spear. The UFC gets to promote that, make a lot of money. So who knows what happens if it goes to the judges' scorecard for a decision with that in mind. So those are the three picks I'm looking very hard at for Saturday. Klein, most definitely going to take her. Fremd, I think, too. And then if I'm doing well in the undercard, I will take Tracy for a half unit, perhaps a little more, if I can push my advantage.
Yeah, out of all those picks, I do agree kind of with the rose fade of the opinion there because, we're just at that point where a lot of the stars that we were watching 5, 6 years ago, just like anything else, they slowly start to burn out. Not to say that Rose, again, I believe she's still in her prime, but what her prime is, to your point, since she's left Trevor's camp, uh, a bit more of a calculated, decisive fighter. Not much of a risk taker as I think she was earlier in her career. I think she definitely still does, yes, have pop on her punches. I think she could handle herself in grappling exchanges. But right, the new up and comers, it's hard to ignore. Again, just the less wear and tear and the less mileage on a fighter typically is a good way to lean. And Rose, again, since past 2 years, I would agree with the sentiment. Just doesn't quite look the same. I like what's the odds against Rose here, if you have them up?
It's going to be at least plus 180. I've seen Rose in the range of 200 to 225, so you should get 180 coming back on Tracy, depending on what book you're at and how the market continues to develop into Saturday. I think Rose is going to be the last leg of a lot of parlays, so that should climb a little bit. Yeah,
Mm,
180 should be your floor.
that so not bad value there either. If you don't see Rose coming out of that with a W, so I agree with that for sure.
Awesome, awesome. And I know you had some baseball you wanted to touch upon. Like you said, you're right there on the edge of the All-Star break, so take it away, my friend.
Oh, so baseball right now. Again, we're coming up on the break, and so summer baseball is a bit different than when we first start in the spring. Now it really is the case of who's hot, who's not. A lot of guys are going to slump that first month, two, maybe even the first 3 months of the season. But again, now we see a lot of players dropped, whether it's to injuries or again, like Tim Anderson's one of like the just saddest stories in baseball. His rise and fall needs to be studied. But right now, kind of a division shakeup, and who looks like again who's really got the most momentum through into the playoff race. So just to quickly summarize what we've missed probably in the past couple weeks, Yankees 3-7 in their last 10. Orioles have jumped them in the division ahead by 3 games. Technically, there are games going on right now. It's Wednesday at the time of this recording, so we'll see if they're able to come away with a win for Game 2 against their series against the Rays right now. But they did lose Game 1 last night. Guardians are still holding strong in the American League Central. Got 6 games ahead of the Twins, but the Tigers, interesting stat I saw today. I believe there's something like 24-10 in games when they score 3 runs or more. It seems like just about every time, too, in the past couple weeks, I check a score. It looks like the Tigers might be dropping one for the night. They're down 2-0, 3-0, and the next thing you know, they have the lead by 3, 4, 5 runs. Crazy game that they had last night, too. They came away with a win against the Guardians. So it's looking like a very interesting division for the American League Central, which didn't seem too much like early off in the year. The Guardians were ahead by at least like 12 or 13 games at one point. The American League West, just a moment on that. If I had a no bet list, it's almost the entirety of the division because it's gotten more competitive, but these are some of the downside teams in the league. Outside of the Astros have came from, I think they had the same amount of wins at one point in the season as the White Sox to now they're just 2 games out of first place in their division against the Mariners. The Mariners were very hot. They went on a bit of a downslope. I believe they won last night, so they're 4-6 over their last 10, but Mariners aren't looking as consistent as they were. Astros are looking like continuing to be the Astros. I would not doubt that they finish first in their division. If anybody maybe called that earlier in the year with how badly they were performing, a future on Astros to win first in the division looks pretty damn good right now with only 2 games behind coming up on the All-Star break. The Athletics keeping it a bit more competitive than the White Sox, but still not one of the best teams in the league. Outrageous game the other day. I think there was like 22 runs scored between them, and I want to say it was the Orioles. They have the ability to generate offense, but just not much in the way of pitching, which we're seeing at approaching the trade deadline and the All-Star break. A lot of teams are looking to see what they can do for relief pitching, but so many teams are in it right now. There's definitely going to be a lot less trades, I think, this summer than we expect out of previous years, just because, again, we're talking about, again, the Rangers as well. They've been a team that's been very hot and cold, but right now they're 7-3. Do I believe they will carry that consistency past and through the All-Star break? No, but I believe you gave them out a day ago or 2 days ago.
I did, yep, on Monday.
If you could catch them in a good spot right now, probably a good pick. But for that reason, all these teams, honestly, besides the Astros would still be on a bet list if we're talking about straight up money lines. When they're coming into a series, maybe game 1 of a series against an inferior team, Astros still look like a good team. But right now, Athletics, Angels, Rangers, and Mariners in the American League West, just a little too inconsistent for my taste, despite even, again, the uptick in offense for the Athletics and what we covered there. But the National League East, somehow, the Phillies have survived through their litany of injuries, still keeping the Braves at bay. Braves kind of finding some type of consistency over there. They're back to 6-4, but again, they've suffered so many injuries throughout the year. It's actually a testament to how good they still are throughout all those injuries. And they're 7.5 back from the Phillies, but also a testament to how good that overall roster is. They just got back Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber and Trey Turner just a couple weeks ago as well. So you're seeing a full-strength Phillies team now. It'll be interesting to see if they can lengthen their stride after the All-Star break and keep that going into the playoffs this year, because their biggest issue is pitching. Um, Mets have had a fair turnaround. They're at exactly dead 45 and 45. Despite being 5-5 over their last 10, they did, I want to say, hit a 7 or 8 win streak a week or two back. I don't believe we had a show in between there when that occurred. So they got really hot. They've slowed down back to about 500, but one makes the argument that, again, Mets look good for a wild card competing against the Braves right now. And last, I'll just say in the National League West with the darling Dodgers right now, their bullpen is just in shambles, and so is my futures bet on Tyler Glasnow. He was put on the IL, I believe, 2 days ago to a back injury. And again, it's just another one of those added to the list. Every above average team right now is hurting for pitching. And so with that being said, I've been playing a lot of batter props. That's my take on it. If you were going to avoid any teams, I would say for the most part, it would be in the American League West. Or again, perhaps fade those teams when you could get steal odds, like I had mentioned, like you did. You only got -150, I think, for that Rangers pick the other night.
Mm-hmm.
Really should have been, again, those really hard to pick favorites, -190 and above. So advantageous situation here. If you are a money line bettor, I would advise waiting for about a week after the All-Star break and really see where the consistency remains in the top two of each division. That's really been my rule of thumb. I really try not to put my money on anybody that's not in first or second place or just a game out of second, and really ride that. But again, right now, pitching has just been tough across the league. Tailing players, Ellie De La Cruz, William Contreras on the Brewers, just to name a couple guys, again, just on an absolute tear over the past 20, 30 days. So if you've been looking at the odds that you get for maybe two different guys to get a hit on any given night, or one player to get 2+ hits, a lot of value there and a lot less of a sweat than some of these games.
The team that really sticks out to me is the Diamondbacks. They started off a little rocky, and then slowly but surely, you see this last week and a half to 2 weeks, they're just creeping up and up and up and coming online kind of around the right time of the year. They took that series against the Dodgers really definitively. They had that
Mm-hmm.
nice series against the Padres. They had the comeback. They had the top of the ninth destruction, I believe, eighth or ninth, where they put up the 7, 8 runs. I like them a lot. They're struggling right now against the Braves. They come back to earth a little bit. But in terms of where they started versus where they are and where they could be at the deadline and beyond, that's most definitely a team I have my eye on. I don't think the odds makers are going to be fully privy to that. I think you can get them at some excellent plus money or like even odds against those Dodger teams, Padres, those West Coast teams that maybe get a little bit more of attention than Arizona and the smaller market out there, just kind of chilling. So that's definitely going to be a team I look at, especially as we get down the stretch and the playoff race tightens up, because that's another team. And here's another point we can touch upon. When you are betting on a team and you have to go dumpster diving a little bit, right? And they're out of the playoff race. Not out of the playoff race, if they're out of the playoff picture, but they're in the playoff race,
Which I
that
think there's
means
only 4 teams that it looks like right now that are pretty much, no matter what happens, won't make the playoffs. And that's
mhm.
saying something. There's really only 4 teams right now that are really out of it. And so how many teams might be willing to give up pieces they have if it looks like they're contending? But
And not only that, every game down the stretch is going to matter, right? In previous years, like you said, where perhaps the parity wasn't as close, you're going to have games where one team clearly wants it more than the other team. Or perhaps there's a team that has first place all locked up. They're just chilling in August. Are they really going to go out there and give 110% to win a random afternoon game? That can vary. However, with the heightened parity in the league, I do think those underdogs, like the plus 120s to plus 110s, who are going to have to come out, fight, scratch, and claw for that playoff position every single day. Because, like you said, we're looking at a very extended, elongated playoff race here. I would almost say it's about to start. I know it may seem a little early, but with all the parity, and I really think we're in it right now.
I
So
agree.
that's definitely a side I have my eyes on. I think the Diamondbacks are going to be able to make us a good amount of money here. And another team I'd like to touch upon that's kind of gone under the radar, I think they've exceeded expectations, but they need pieces of a deadline if they want to do anything, is the Red Sox. The Red Sox were not supposed to be in
Yep.
a playoff position. Their fan base was not happy with them at all. The way they managed their roster, their aggression or lack thereof, and how they went out and got pieces. They lost Giolito and they lost Story to injury, and yet there they are in the wild card spot. They're taking games against the Yankees. They're coming out. They're winning big at Fenway. So that's another sneaky little team there I have my eye on. Will they make a postseason run? I don't believe so. But coming down the stretch, I think that's another team that's going to surprise people in how well they perform against, that top echelon. Yankees, Orioles, the big boys of the league.
Well, and to your point, just really quick about the Diamondbacks, it was about this time last year that they, I believe, had the worst or the second worst odds to make it to the World Series. And, well, you see what they did last year. So that's always something to keep in mind, too. The team that you least expect, if they are just a little bit in it at the halfway mark, baseball is a very, very long season. And to your point, even about the Red Sox right now, there's only a 3.5 game difference between them. Yankees are 3-7 in their last 10. The Red Sox are 7-3. The Red Sox, as an organization, would love nothing more than to take what the conversation was about the Yankees in the first half of the year, or maybe one would argue the first third of the year, and have the Yankees fighting out of third place between the Red Sox and the Orioles going into August. That would be probably the biggest turnaround story of the year. But yeah, so a lot of things are possible at the halfway through point if the right team gets hot. One thing I'd like to add, I'll send this over after this. Maybe we could get it on the screen for a reel. Already dabbled in just one future since I know that Tyler Glass now prop is probably done for through injury uh, on this parlay, and I covered them briefly earlier. But the Guardians, I believe and feel, may be that team that just quietly all year dominated, held their division, and make quite a run through the playoffs. And I have them at least get into the World Series. I do think, again, the Dodgers this year, the pitching just isn't right. Shohei's not even in the mix. Another year for the Dodgers, I would argue that could be the Dodgers' year. I don't believe that this is a must-win year for them. And it's hard to really imagine seeing the Yankees go the full stretch. And they were both the two biggest favorites in there. So if we remove them two from the equation and we really look at who's been the most consistent throughout the league in their division, I make the argument that it's been the Guardians. Again, despite a tough loss yesterday against the Tigers are really making noise in that division. But just to run through the quick list real quick, what I have for you, and you could add your take to it. But just a little wild off season because we're getting close to NFL preseason, baby. Only about 4 more weeks. We got Guardians World Series winner. All right. We got the Bengals. We got Burrow taking the Bengals to the promised land, Super Bowl winner. UConn running it back for college basketball. Got the Nuggets, not Boston, making a run to the NBA championship and winning. And then your beloved Boston Bruins having a hell of a much needed after a disrespected past 2 years in the postseason, a violent and dominating run through the playoffs for the Stanley Cup. That nets us, I think it's somewhere around 6 million odds. $1 on this parlay. You could still get this in $1 over $600,000. Plenty of value there and a lot of time to sweat it. But just wanted to throw that out there. And again, right now, the Guardians, again, just with everything that's culminated to this halfway point in the season, Guardians would be a team to keep your eye on.
For those future picks, I like them a lot. I like the fact that you recognize the value on the Bruins. As soon as they sign Swayman, they're going to have that roster complete. And I really do think they're being overlooked here. And it's an interesting point because you'll probably look behind me, see all the Bruins shit, and be like, yeah, okay, buddy. Sure, you think the Bruins are going to win the cup. I bet you said that every year since you were 9. And you know what? I have. But it reminds me of a famous ESPN article I read by a guy who was a Warriors beat writer, and in 2015, he was the only person to pick the Warriors to win the title. And all his colleagues roasted him. They're like, yeah, okay, Homer. biased, etc. And he was right because he saw more of the Warriors than the national media did at the time, so he was privy to the ins and outs, how they would improve the roster, and the fact that they were right there on the cusp. So, as a Bruins fan, I can say that they were right there against Florida that entire series. It went 6. It most likely could have gone 7 if they had any type of goal scoring or depth in that regard. They've added that with Elias Lindholm. Poitras is going to be healthy all year next year. Lysell and Merkulov should come up from Providence and hopefully make some noise. Jake DeBrusk, some people have said that's a key departure. It is in the regard of two-way play and defense. I can tell you as someone who watches every game, and on the offensive end, Jake DeBrusk would either be amazing or he would be a ghost. And there is no in between. And you could pretty much tell within the first 5 minutes if he was going to show up that night. So I think having more consistent younger players in that role will be very good for them. Looking at the ever futures there, the big one for NBA that I think is being a little, underlooked. I think the Timberwolves just do it. I think that
You
younger
think
off.
so?
I do. I think they got the experience they needed. They saw how bright the lights can get. Excuse me. Maybe a poetic misspeak there, considering the analogy. I think that Western Conference Finals really helped them out, and this is their last year in terms of luxury tax and everything to have all of them together. They're going to lose at least somebody the following year unless ownership's really able to pull some bullshit. So I
Towns
think they
has
go.
to stay healthy, man,
You're
and
right.
they got to figure out the big man situation. Otherwise, there too. I see Anthony having a fair year. I see him having a very similar year to this year. I don't think the question is him, but it's really on the defensive side. Um, if they could find improvement there, and again, like I said, most importantly, stay healthy. Not a terrible take though. I could see your point in that. That's pretty much a good amount of the reasoning that I have with Boston uh, on here. It's a lot of these things are timing. It always seems like when now for a lot of these teams when they're built for it, but again, the timing and how the rest of the landscape of the league is playing out too. I mean, again, very exciting news with the Knicks picking up Bridges. We lose Hartenstein, but we retain OG Anobi. So again, the Eastern Conference right now, and even just again the classic New York Boston rivalry looks like it's about to be better than it ever was. So again, the excitement for the NBA season all time high right now. MLB All Star break about as interesting as you could ask for, and we got NFL knocking right on the door. So looks like it's going to be a good summer and lead up through the fall right now, and obviously NHL included there too.
It's always nice when someone throws in the NHL at the end there after the more popular sports. It warms my heart. Like, yeah, woo, don't forget about us. We play hockey. The
Hey,
only NFL future I have right now is I'm all over CJ Stroud. I think he wins MVP in a Lamar-like season. I think he's just set up to really cook there. Other than that, though, I think we see something similar to what we have in baseball. NFL is wide open. I have
yeah,
no idea who's going to be, even in the upper echelon. I could see the Bears taking a huge step forward. I could see the Jets, if Rodgers is healthy, taking a big step forward. I could see the old guard of the Chiefs and the 49ers easily again.
it
The
would be nice
Lions,
to see this year at least 8 starting quarterbacks not all out for
yeah,
long
not all
periods of
die.
time because last year that definitely was part of the reason why a lot of the teams were as close to the playoffs as they should have been. Like again, even the Jets were only 2 or 3 games out. Same thing for the Giants, and I think 3 of those games were decided by 4 points or less. Again, they had no Jacobs all year. Jones, I'm sorry, they had no Daniel Jones all year. Jets had no Rodgers all year. There's no reason why we should even be that close to the playoffs without a starting quarterback. But a handful of those victories from both teams were because the other team also did not have a starting quarterback. And again, the historically bad primetime games last year, too. Really awful and unfortunate, just ruined by injuries.
Prime time unders, baby. Also, you spooked me there for a bit when you said Jacobs. I was like, fuck, you guys still have Brandon Jacobs? Like, he's still out there? That
Yeah,
fucker running around? Yeah. But
what a time that was.
the only ever strong lean I have for NFL, this is kind of a weird one. The Packers are going to finish exactly where they finished last year because they're too good not to make the playoffs, but they're
Mm-hmm.
not quite there yet to usurp one of the top teams in the divisions or the teams that are going to be above them in the wild card. So they're going to be right there. I like the Bucks to defend that division against the Falcons. I know a lot of people are going to disagree with that. The Falcons are a sexy pick with Kirk Cousins coming in. And yeah, so much NFL to talk about. in the coming months. But the only other item I have for this show, and you can add this to your YOLO wall bang 360 no scope futures parlay, Spain to lift the trophy in the Euro against England. I like Spain a lot here. Even though I rode England today, I think Southgate, he's not like the evil, awful manager people are saying he is. I think he's connected with the team. He makes the subs at the right time. However, I don't think he's going to have the tactics to contain those young, speedy strikers. Nico Williams, Yamal, like all of these guys are just so fucking fast. Spain plays a very aggressive style. They keep the pedal on the gas down, so to speak, and I just think they're going to run away with it.
I agree. I think they were a bigger favorite coming into the last grouping of 8 here. I was looking at futures myself. I want to say they were ahead. I think plus 210 or plus 310 at the first or top of the list or second on the list when it was down to 8. But I agree. I can see it. Disappointing today. On my end, I see that you gave out England. I was on the other side of it. I had a small sprinkle on Netherlands and pens. It did not go my way. England gets that goal right towards the end, but Spain looks like they're in position to finish strong here too. Let's see again. I'm not sure which day the All-Star break officially starts. I think a lot of teams have only one or like one the wrapping up the series they're currently in, and maybe one more for some teams. I'm not sure which day of the week next week we're officially in it, but be interesting to see where we're at this time next week.
Indeed, it will be, boys. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We have plenty of good content coming your way. What the fuck is going on with my screen? I don't know. Maybe they're coming for me. Maybe the black SUVs are outside. I gave out too much truth, gave out too much game. The FanDuel Illuminati is coming. All right,
Take it
support the
easy,
show
brother.
so they can't take me out. All right, peace.
You got me feeling lucky. I'm putting everything on black.